Hello there, my name is Retro. The first time you see my channel, I used to review cartoon series, anime series, or something completely random. And today we're going to talk about a film called Bombay Rose. And this film by itself is super charming. It's one of the films I want to say I want to recommend it automatically, but at the same time I'm sort of hesitant to recommend this film because this film it does take a little time to get into it. It's kind of like have a slow pacing for a reason because this movie trying to explain the story but let each character shine to understand their situation, what they actually are into. But that in itself, the whole story is basically about Rose, who basically left her village with her little sister and his grandfather, who lived to the big city, have a better life. And it did work for a little while because his uncle basically had a great job, but he unfortunately had like a heart attack. Now Rose had to stop going to school and now be sort of a kind of like a dancer bar woman, but that's sort of a shame kind of job in their country, and she's sort of not really ashamed. She knows she kind of needs to because she needs to eat and pay for her sister's school. And on top of everything else, the boss she works with is sort of a horrible scumbag who kind of abuses her. Like, yeah, I know you have a certain type of situation, so I know you won't walk away because you need the job. But also trying to make her sort of a scam the deal that I could make you marry someone else who has a lot of money, but of course I get half the cuts. And you see what I mean? The boss is sort of abusive. It also have other characters. You have like a male lead that I wouldn't mention his name because I cannot say his name correctly, so I'm calling Blue for right now. Blue is basically the love interest of Rose, but Blue has his own problems. Like, he's waiting for the call. That call to get him a job. The only problem is the call never comes. He always sort of waiting. So he's trying to figure out, okay, I can find a different job here or make some deals here to make some more money. But he does sort of questionable things just to live on, and he needs to eat. But at the same time, he has also other issues, like he's dealing with his parent getting killed, about this incident about the soldiers. He has his own issues, but at the same time he's sort of interested of Rose, but at the same time because Rose and Blue are not the same kind of culture. I mean, they're different race, and that's sort of a frowned upon where they are, so they don't want to date, but at the same time they do. But at the same time, Rose has her own secrets, and she doesn't want to tell him she's a kind of like a dancer bar girl. And you see this sort of got complicated. You think this movie is about a romance story, but no, this is a little bit more than just a romance story. It's one of those stories that you have so many characters, you actually know, you actually get time to understand what their problem is, but each character sort of push the other character to do something else. For example, let's just say if Rose wanted to go in a taxi, but Blue stops her because Blue wants to talk to Rose. The taxi driver got tired of waiting and he leaves. A few seconds later, the taxi driver dies in a car accident. And Rose and Blue look at each other like, whoa, that was kind of close. If Rose was in the taxi, she'd be also dead. It almost was meant to Rose to be killed. Well, Blue being there to stop her, this accident really actually happened. It's like, if I didn't make Blue before, I'll be dead right now. And that's basically the idea of the whole movie. Like, knowing different people affects your life, affects the situation you are. Because later on, Rose let him meet this someone else, like this mechanic for Blue, so he can get a job. If Blue didn't know Rose, he probably never got that job before. And that's what I meant. Everything's sort of built in a way that is sort of destined to happen, but should not happen if you met this other person and become something else. And I feel that's sort of interesting in this type of film, that sort of makes you think a little bit, but at the same time make you sort of happy the situation they had got into. And that's why I kind of enjoyed this film, because it's that sort of charm, that what if scenario that I just enjoy. On top of all this, it really helps so much more is the animation. The animation is so completely unique. Now, let me describe the art. The art is unbelievably unique because it's sort of a painting come to life. You don't mean like, oh, it becomes a real person. No, no, no. It actually is moving, but a painting kind of format. It's sort of brushstrokes, like you see the shading, but it doesn't like a painting form. And that's what I mean. More like kind of like an old PC game. You see the old gameplay, like they have this. They don't have the high budget, but they have the sort of lag. But that lag has the sort of charm. Better yet, let me describe it more like this is the version of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, sort of lagging kind of frames. And they went through that sort of style, and it actually works super well. It's something that you just be intrigued watching what they do with this sort of style, because you see the camera work, how somebody running, someone is dancing, someone doing the background, and they're very kind of limited kind of painting, but how they move, it's just so charming and unique. You just stop staring. Every time that you see something else, you're just blown away in the refreshment of the art that kind of grabs you. Now, this movie does have some bad things. One of the major ones is kind of heavily leans into Indian culture, and that could be a problem to the viewer, especially if you're in the West, because if you know nothing about Indian culture, you probably will get confused in the movie. But lucky for us, they're just leaning on it. It doesn't really heavily rely on it. It relies on the characters, not the culture that much. So it's something you kind of throws you off for a second, but you can continue watching because the character is just so charming and interesting. You just don't care. Besides that, that's the only complaint I actually have. But I do kind of wish they do explain some of the culture to get more interested. For example, they have a sort of like a fairy tale Indian story kind of showing you once in a while in the movie, but I don't know who is this fairy tale people, what are they here. They sort of use it as sort of homage what's going on with the main characters in the fairy tale. It's sort of seeing understanding their situation better. The only problem is I have no idea who these fairy tale characters really are because they're Indian fairy tales. So I was sort of lost for a couple of seconds. Besides that, I still kind of recommend it because it's still very likable and charming. Now I have one question. Do you seen this film? Do you like it? Did you enjoy it? Comment down below. Let me know. I got really nothing else to say. Just thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and have a wonderful day. Bye.